So today I'm just going to walk you through something called insulin resistance. I think it's really important to understand. It's kind of an epidemic in the modern world. Its impact on the rest of your metabolism, your brain, your immune system, your mood, your sleep is profound. It's often referred to as metabolic syndrome or syndrome X, just because it ends up being involved in so many aspects of the decline in modern health. Even including and especially cardiovascular disease. So obviously this is a pretty important thing to understand. So first thing we want to be aware of is the basics. So you eat food, especially carbohydrates. The carbohydrates are in your digestive tract. They get broken down from complex carbohydrates. So unless you're eating sugar, then it's going to be an easier breakdown. Once it's broken down to glucose, it's transported to your vascular system, your blood supply. And when that happens, that's going to trigger the secretion of insulin, which has the job of basically taking excess calories, especially as blood sugar, and putting them into the places where they need to go, like your muscles, your heart, your brain, other organs, and things like that. So that's the basics. You eat, especially carbohydrates, break down to glucose. As glucose goes up, insulin goes up and puts the glucose away. If you overdo this process, eventually your body will be unable to use all of the glucose, which happens, and that just means the glucose will turn into triglycerides, and the triglycerides will turn into belly fat, and then all kinds of other things. So you don't want that to happen, unless that's what you want to see happen. So another detail is different carbohydrates have a different glycemic index. And glycemic index basically is the way we classify how fast any food that you eat is going to turn into actual blood sugar, right? So a high glycemic index food, say white bread, so say you're eating a high glycemic index food like white bread, or even whole wheat bread, it's going to come into your body and be turned into blood sugar very, very quickly. And again, that's going to spike your insulin even higher, and probably higher than is actually safe or healthy in the long term. And if you keep doing that all day, every day, your body's going to just get used to secreting abundant, perhaps unnecessarily high amounts of insulin all day, every day, because again, your body kind of wants to stay in this homeostasis thing where what happens is predictable and it can always adapt to the change. So your body will naturally adapt to eating sugar and bread and pasta and croissant and muffin and chocolate bars and, I don't know, fancy lattes with syrup in them and whatever else you're doing to yourself. And that becomes more and more dangerous. So the natural insight and response would be to eat more and more low glycemic foods so that your body gets a chance to run on less and less insulin. And most people have to make that transition gradually, sort of try to cut the high glycemic stuff in half, wait about 4 days, and replace it during those 4 days with lower glycemic foods. And the next 4 days, try and cut the high guys in half again, and then replace them with the lower glycemic foods. And typically over about 2 to 3 weeks, most people can re-correct your insulin metabolism to where it's baseline secretions every day, and the numbers we would measure with blood testing and things like that would be more normal, because it's really important to have normal blood sugar and normal blood insulin levels, because high blood sugar and high blood insulin cause more problems than almost anything else you could be doing to yourself with food. So other ways we sometimes get blood sugar into the body is when you're eating a lot of protein, even if you're not eating a lot of carbohydrates, or especially if you're not eating a lot of carbohydrates, your liver can turn the protein into carbohydrate or glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis, which is a fancy way of saying make new sugar or make new glucose. If you're under a lot of stress, you're going to release a lot of cortisol. Cortisol is called a glucocorticoid, and that just basically means that its job is to release glucose into your blood. So if you're having a fight or flight response to something, you'll have the blood sugar to keep running or keep fighting or to keep filling out your tax forms or whatever you're doing that's making you feel stress. So those can also add to the load of blood sugar, although protein isn't so dangerous because it's a slow process. It's obviously very low glycemic. Stress, it just depends on how much stress you're experiencing, compounded with how much high glycemic index food you're eating. So that's the basics of insulin. Now I just want to take you through a little sort of cartoon metaphor as to how insulin resistance actually looks inside the body and why it can be so terrifyingly dangerous. So if we were to look at insulin resistance on a cellular level, which is a good idea because that's really where it gets important, let's take a look at the inside of a cell. So here I've driven a kind of basic cartoon of the inside of a cell to keep it as simple as possible. We're going to say that your mitochondria and certain other processes that are in your cells that need glucose, they have their job is to sit there and watch TV and, adjust the controls of the inside of the cell based on what they see on the TV. And every time they get hungry, they ask their butler to order a pizza, and the pizza is going to come to the body in a pizza delivery truck. Now the pizza delivery truck is insulin and the pizza is the glucose, just to be a little bit playful. So, butler orders the pizza, it comes to the door, the butler, which represents a specific kind of enzyme that actually delivers glucose around inside your cells, takes the sugar, the pizza, gives it to the guy in the chair, he eats the pizza, burp, feel better, can do his job for a little bit longer, and then later on he's going to ask for more pizza. And this is normal, healthy, regular insulin, glucose, cellular metabolism functioning. There's natural signaling that goes back and forth that keeps the whole process going. Now, let's take a look what happens if you're eating the modern standard American diet full of sugar and flour and all kinds of bad carbohydrates. Okay, so let's assume that you're eating now a standard American diet or excessive high glycemic carbohydrates in your diet. Our heroic mitochondria, who's trying to get his job done, feels hungry, asks his butler to please call on the pizza. Butler does so. Butler comes to the door when he gets a little doorbell. Insulin's here. And as soon as he opens the door and looks outside, he sees this insanely unfamiliar, nearly infinite line of pizza delivery trucks with pizzas saying, "Your pizza's here, echo, echo, echo." And that's pretty new, if not terrifyingly new, for this butler, this cell, and the human metabolism overall. So what the butler does naturally when he sees this is he gets the pizza that he asked for, and then he locks the door. And that basically represents what we call receptor site resistance, where any receptor site on your cells, and believe it or not, something as tiny as a cell can have maybe 1,000 receptor sites on it for different hormones, peptides, bringing in nutrients, getting rid of wastes and stuff like that. So again, the butler locks the door, creates this receptor site resistance, and then the pizza delivery trucks and pizzas, or all this insulin and glucose, has to stay inside your vascular system because it can't get out of your vascular system if it can't get into the cell. So one strategy your body uses right away is to try and allow more of it to get into your brain, right? Because your brain can use quite a lot of glucose. So now you have just a lot more things to think about. If you don't have that much glucose in your brain, you can't think about that many things. So you start having people feeling more anxious, more worried, more racing thoughts, and things like that. The next thing that can happen, not very popular, is your body turns the glucose into triglycerides, turns into fat, which usually starts to build up from your belly button around to your back. If you don't build fat that way, it may start more around your hips. It just actually depends on certain hormones in your body, which way you dispose of triglycerides, and basically get more and more fat. Probably more importantly though, when you have a lot of insulin inside your vascular system, the insulin itself becomes corrosive to the inner lining of your blood vessels, and it can cause a pitting wound, which can actually make your body have to repair that wound. Usually it's going to use cholesterol and a white blood cell. Now that's normal physiology just in case this happens, but what can happen if you're eating a lot of processed foods or overcooked foods, fried foods, the cholesterol you're eating may be oxidized. And when you have oxidized cholesterol and a white blood cell used as the patch for the wound inside your blood vessels, that becomes plaque, and it's not very flexible and interferes with normal circulation, inevitably leading to things like arteriosclerosis and high blood pressure and potentially cardiovascular disease. So insulin resistance isn't just bad for your cells. It isn't just about getting a little bit fatter around your belly or your butt. It's actually about whether or not you're going to end up with, mainstream cardiovascular disease, which is not usually treated very well because they actually want to get rid of cholesterol, which doesn't really make sense. Another thing that can happen, I think, which is really important, is having excess sugar in your vascular system creates glycation. And glycation is a kind of binding of proteins and sugars and things that makes things more brittle. And in fact, the plaque that you build up in your brain with respect to Alzheimer's is actually a glycation process. Another source of glycation products or end products is fried food or grilled food, where you've got the grill marks on your meat or whatever. So it's a bit of a modern fad to eat meat that way, but if you think historically, there really would be no way to grow meat until you could make metal. So pretty new. It can affect your brain around serotonin and tryptophan transport within the blood-brain barrier, which can fiddle around with moods, sleep, anxiety, depression, and things like that as well. But I think that would have to be another video because it's kind of complicated. But I just wanted you to be aware, insulin resistance is really, really, really important for your health, especially in midlife when you're noticing you're battling the bulge and you're having more mood problems and sleep problems and stuff like that. So I'm Michael Smith. I'm an integrative medicine doctor. I've been at this for 20 years. I hope this information is helping you. Please like and share the video. Please put comments and preferably even questions in the comment box below the video so that I can get a sense of how this is making sense to you. If you have a particular question you want answered around your health or just around modern medicine, Chinese medicine, anything like that, love to answer your questions. Please subscribe to the channel so that I get a sense that this is actually something you want more of. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Please share with your friends, especially if you know somebody who might be experiencing this themselves. And have a great day. Take care of yourself. Low glycemic food, better for you. Thanks again.